Okay. So this is the TCDS for, it's a Dowdy R408. So this is the propeller you just saw on the Q400 or the de Havilland DHC 400. A few things to note here. It talks about hub material. This one's a pretty cool prop. Here's that composite glass and carbon reinforced plastic. So fiberglass blade, it's a carbon fiber spar. But the reason I'm showing this one has everything on it. This is the full bells, whistles, modern version of a propeller. It is beyond being fiberglass. If you look at it, a prop like this, it's actually going to look very plasticky. And that's because they put a polyurethane coating on them. And that polyurethane coating is it's very like chip and wear resistant. Okay, it's almost a rubbery type plastic. I mean, it feels plasticky, but it's got a slight softness to it, like you can push your fingernail into it. And what that does is it helps prevent the blades from getting chips and chunks out of them. The other thing it has is they put a nickel leading edge on it. So you'll see a metal, and this is not the de-ice boot. You'll actually have two sections of leading edge. So inboard, you'll have that black kind of de-ice boot over the front of it. The outboard portion of it is going to be this metallic material, this nickel. And so the nickel is for wear and for chip prevention and to increase the durability of the blade. Erosion protection is what they call it. And then electric de-ice boots for ice protection. It lists the number of blade, design series, and then a given prop may have more than one blade part number that can be used with it. And so what you'll often see when you're looking at props, you've probably noticed this, is you'll have a hub part number, you'll have blade part numbers, and then the whole assembly is a part number, but oftentimes that's not stamped on the prop anywhere. You'll find it in like an IPC, or you'll find it in the TCDS, but the actual prop itself oftentimes doesn't have the complete part number on it for an assembly. And so you have to go back and look at, okay, what hub do I have? Which blades do I have? And altogether, what part number does that make up when you're looking at an aircraft? This one was fairly recently certified in the 1990s. They put on almost every TCDS for one of these propellers, they do give you a definition of what the breakdown is. So the so C there is for civilian. Then they have R is Dowdy Aerospace and it stands for Rodal because it was originally Rodal. And then 408's the model. And then the other items to the right, the 6, the 123, -F, the 17, that often is determined by the blades that are on there. But it's not the blade part number, it's the total build-up part number given by that. And then further over, we've got that it's a flange mount. You see the blade size as part of the blades. So kind of all together, you'll often have to kind of figure that out. The other part here is this one has pitch control from feather to full reverse by a PCU, a pitch control unit. And that is going into that electronic controller. Okay, so instead of, it's not a hydromechanical governor, but rather it uses a PCU. It's still those still have a hydromechanical element. They still have those flyweights in them. But there's a computer that's tying into that now, instead of just being purely hydromechanical. And then it talks about the feathering and reversing features, including whether or not there's a way to unfeather. And in this case, it has, counterweights are the primary unfeathering. The motor pump unit is if you need to unfeather it while the engine is not running. Okay. The other thing you'll see with a lot of these is you can see right-hand tractor only, clockwise view from rear. Almost all of these turboprop propellers are going to be right-hand rotation. It's very, very rare that you have a twin or multi-engine turboprop with counter-rotating propellers. And that's because the engines themselves, they don't build a left-hand rotation and right-hand rotation. And so the propellers are all going to be pretty much a right-hand rotation. Where you see counter-rotating propellers occasionally is with recip aircraft, recip engines. But as far as I'm aware, I've not come across a turboprop with counter-rotating propellers. And so they don't specify left or right. So for most of these, the same propeller would be used on the left and right side of the aircraft. That means for the crews flying them, they have to take into account the gyroscopic effect. And oftentimes too, if you look at like the King Air, the tail, the vertical stabilizer is not centered and straight. It's actually offset a little bit. And that helps to offset that gyroscopic effect that's going on. Blades are interchangeable, so when these are rebuilt, you can rebuild the hub and the blades separately. They don't have to be the same blades and hub kept together for the entire life of the propeller. We would have Franken, when I was at the airlines in our prop shop, we would Franken propeller. So you got a hub that's got cracks in it, you got good blades, you got another propeller where the blades have been damaged. Get all the good parts together, 2 propellers becomes 1 propeller. And so they're interchangeable in that regard where they are designed so they're not built one to one. Okay. Some of the other stuff you'll see, here's the breakdown of the full propeller where it gives you different part numbers. They'll give you drawings, and then, if I can find it, they'll have operational limitations, and including like what the max. So one thing that's interesting here is when we talked about overspeed governors and where they're set at, this one, for instance, the overspeed, the governor will kick in at 105% plus or minus 1%. Okay. It has both a PCU, prop control unit, which is essentially the prop governor, and then it still has an overspeed governor that kicks in. And then it even has even if that overspeed governor, if it takes a second to kick in and the prop goes too high, there is a transient torque of 113%. So it overloads the prop, but it's not going to damage it as long as it's not running at that high torque for too long. Okay. Same thing with overspeed, 115% overspeed. Okay. The last part is a lot of these will list what aircraft and engine combination they go with. So here's where you can see the propeller model with the DHC-8 400 series, which is that Q400-8. It goes with a Pratt & Whitney PW150A as the engine. And they even give you the engine TCDS number there to be able to look that up. Okay. So that was just kind of some. So this one's more complete than some. I've pulled up some that older propellers. It's about that many lines. It's like 5 lines of text from a propeller from the 1940s or something like that. So.